Trade talks have really heated up around Stars defenseman John Klingberg. They seem really motivated to get a deal done here very soon. We do have an update as well on Carey Price. Could he be out for the rest of the year? It might just be it for him as a Montreal Canadien. Clearly the Oilers have issues. Connor McDavid is very frustrated, and now they have more issues in goaltending as well. Plus we have news from the NHL waiver wire as well. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to talk about here today. First up, we have news from the NHL waiver wire. We had a player on waivers yesterday. The Boston Bruins had placed forward Carson Kuhlman on waivers, and he was claimed. He's been claimed by the Seattle Kraken. Of course, he's been in the Bruins organization for about 4 years. This was his fourth season after being an undrafted free agent out of the college hockey scene in the United States. Never really found a regular spot per se. He had appeared in 19 games this year, put up 2 points, but I think it's fair to say that after Oscar Steen was recalled, Steen's done fairly well and really claimed that spot, and that's kind of pushed him further down the depth chart and made his roster spot more necessary to give to somebody else, and it's obviously made him expendable. So Kuhlman, his time in Boston has come to an end, and he now heads over to the Seattle Kraken. And we had two more players be placed on waivers here today. The Arizona Coyotes and the Montreal Canadiens, who actually were playing each other today. The Coyotes had defenseman Cam Dineen on waivers. He's appeared in 14 games this year, put up 4 assists. And the Montreal Canadiens had forward Alex Belzile on waivers as well. He's played 11 games this year and put up 0 points. So we'll find out at 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow if either of those players are claimed. I would think pretty decent chance that they both end up clearing. Now, we also have some updates when it comes to some GM searches. It's not really all that common that we have so many vacant GM jobs, especially mid-season in the NHL. But currently we have Chicago, Anaheim, Vancouver, and Montreal. We don't really have a lot to offer right now in terms of the Blackhawks. When it comes to the Anaheim Ducks, the only name that's been mentioned by NHL insiders that they appear to be interested in outside of their organization is Chris McFarland, who's with Colorado. He's been an assistant there for a while and has been mentioned numerous times in rumors for other GM jobs in the last few years. So we'll see if he gets a look, but the Ducks do have several internal candidates that they're considering and have already apparently interviewed, including interim GM Jeff Sullivan, as well as Dave Nonis, who's in the organization as well. So we'll see if anybody in the organization is the guy they decide to go with, or if they go outside. I mean, they do have a panel of people working together. Of course, the Samuelis, the owners, will be involved, but obviously some former players as well, including Paul Kariya in the mix there to help kind of work as a committee to determine the next general manager of the Ducks. When it comes to Montreal and Vancouver, we do have more updates. Both of those teams, even though they're looking for a GM, they're not completely without somebody at the top of the food chain, since the Canucks hired Jim Rutherford and the Montreal Canadiens hired Jeff Gorton. In Vancouver, word is that there's probably going to be happening here soon. It could happen this week that they name a GM. Many feel that Patrick Allvin from Pittsburgh is the leading candidate. I know Elliot Friedman's reported that basically since the beginning, that's the name that he keeps hearing the most about, and very well could end up being the guy. But he's been told by one source this past weekend, though, that, you know, it might not be Allvin, that a guy like Scott Mellanby is still in the mix too. Mellanby apparently did have a really solid interview, and we'll see. All we do know is that Rutherford's made it known that whoever is hired will likely be a first-time general manager earning themselves a promotion to the role. That's about as far as he said. Now, it's possible in both these scenarios, in Vancouver and Montreal, that they do hire multiple people for different roles within the organization. They'll have a GM, but they may hire somebody else to, whether it be in player personnel, player development, assistant GM, or other aspects of the front office. And they are looking to diversify a little bit. Wouldn't be surprising to see a female hired in either one or both of those scenarios as well. When it comes to the Montreal Canadiens, it looks like player agent Kent Hughes appears to be the favorite. I know Elliot Friedman mentioned today in the 32 Thoughts podcast that basically they're waiting on a decision from Hughes, and it looks like either he's in or he's out. So it sounds like they're kind of waiting for him, because if he is in and wants the job, I think it's his. That's at least the way things sound. We'll have to wait and find out. It could be announced anytime. I know Friedman mentioned that he wouldn't be shocked if they announced it today, or if not, sometime this week. But the other two names that appeared to be still in the mix was Daniel Briere and Matthew Darche, according to Friedman. That was out the podcast that came out this morning, which I believe they recorded last night. But I've seen other reports from Montreal media indicating that they've heard that Daniel Briere is out of the mix. So that very well could mean it's down to Darche or Hughes, and it might mean that Hughes has been the one who's accepted the job too. We really don't know. Of course, Ken Hughes is from Quebec. So he checks a lot of the boxes. Obviously, there's a lot of, different areas of expertise. He has, previous relations with Gordon, so certainly something they're familiar with. And Gordon had made mention early on in his first press conference when he was hired by Montreal that he had candidates that were kind of thinking outside the box. It wasn't necessarily going to be somebody who was, an assistant GM getting promoted up or something to that effect. So, of course, Hughes is the agent for Patrice Bergeron, Chris Letang, Drake Batherson, and a few others as well. Like, he does have a decent-sized client list, and there's some pretty big names there. I know there was one early rumor on when he was first mentioned as being a candidate, is would he, obviously, convince Bergeron or Letang, who are both pending UFAs, to maybe head to Montreal, but I can't see that being the case. To be honest, I think they're both likely going to re-sign where they are. And I don't know that Montreal wants to bring in aging veterans right now if they're going to be going down more of the road of a rebuild. But we will see. So it sounds like Hughes is the leading candidate, but we'll have to wait and get more updates on that situation here as we find out. But both of those jobs could be announced just about any time this week coming. Now, before we jump further into the rest of the video, I do want to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Name a better duo than McDavid and Draisaitl this season. I've got one. Manscaped in grooming. That's right, our sponsors at Manscaped, the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming, have all the best tools to clean up your whole act when it comes to your hygiene for men. It's time to skate on the first line with the global leaders here in men's hygiene and join the movement at Manscaped, where you can get the Performance Package 4.0, which includes the Lawnmower 4.0, as well as some fantastic new products just recently launched, including the brand new 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. This is a terrific product. Allows you to wash your hair in one fell swoop. Leaves you smelling great. It has the refined cologne quality fragrance attached. Absolutely phenomenal. And of course, the other new product most recently launched is the premium body wash to kind of complete the set. But that's not all. Manscaped has new products coming out here yet again in January, so you want to stay tuned. The body wash gives you deep hydration, keeps you smelling great, and not only smelling great, but feeling moisturized as well. Join the movement at manscaped.com and use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. That's promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. So thanks very much for watching that promotional content. I do greatly appreciate it. As was mentioned in the promo, all kinds of new products recently. I highly recommend you check it out. They got all aspects of male grooming covered. And of course, getting 20% off makes it that much better. Now, in the rest of the video, I do want to cover a few different topics. One being the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, it's not hard to not talk about the Oilers and the frustration and pressure that is mounting in Edmonton right now. According to what we're hearing, Ken Holland and his whole scouting team is off in meetings in California. So I'm not really sure. It doesn't sound like any kind of a deal for any kind of help coming is imminent at all. But they've run into more additional goaltending issues, and you can tell by the recent media availability by Connor McDavid after the loss the other night to Ottawa that his frustration is mounting. It's obviously getting, more and more all the time, and the goaltending situation is just getting more and more complex too. Of course, Mike Smith is out hurt. Stuart Skinner was getting a chance to start over Mikko Koskinen since they weren't obviously pleased with Koskinen's recent performances, and now Skinner's been tested positive for COVID, so now he's not available either. They're probably not going to have any choice but to go to Koskinen. I don't know what they're going to do for a backup. They just brought in Alex Stalock, who hasn't played in like a year and a half, or whatever it's been. So he won't be available. I mean, he very well could hold the fort at the AHL, Maybe they give Olivier Rodrigue a chance to call up. I'm not really sure what they're going to do in that sense, but they're going to need a goalie here. So I don't know if the Oilers will look for a short-term fix, maybe something they can get for really cheap. I don't know, but something has to give in Edmonton when it comes to their goaltending. But Ken Holland appears very reluctant to fire the coach or make a trade for a goalie. So if the answers are within, then you'd think they have to change how they play is really the only solution. And clearly what they're doing is not working. They have an abysmal record here in their last 10-12 games. And McDavid, after the last game where they lost against Ottawa after holding a 3-1 lead going into the third period, really didn't have a lot for answers. And you can tell by the stare that he was given and just a whole look on his face, his whole demeanor, that the frustration is mounting. Now, of course, I know there are some trade talks we're going to talk about in this video. I'm not suggesting Connor McDavid's going to be requesting a trade or anything like that, but I will say this. I know when Holland was first hired, there was some talk then that McDavid might want out. I mean, that was obviously not to be the case. That was proven to be untrue, but I think it's fair to say that he had already gone through enough time in Edmonton at that point that the frustration of not winning and getting really any good results was mounting. And Holland apparently, at the time, which I'm sure we talked about way back on the channel, Holland's vision was presented to McDavid. He basically promised them that within 2 years, they'd be a competitive team, making the playoffs, and obviously having a chance to win every year. And certainly they are far from that. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they have not addressed their goaltending in way, way, way too long. But it also goes into the fact that they just can't play team defense, and they're so focused on the run and gun style of the game, and they, that it doesn't matter. Like, you look at some games that they've had the secondary scoring, like they lost 6-4 to Ottawa. They got the secondary scoring in that game, and they still lost. So it's not a case of the offense. I mean, McDavid and Draisaitl are two of the most elite players in the world, and it's not enough. So obviously, you would think it's going to boil down to having to change how you play, barring some kind of massive trade, or you bring in a different coach who can maybe implement a different style. But it's funny because Dave Tippett has always been known as a very defensive-minded coach. And he's having those same struggles with this group. So a lot of it, some of it's personnel, some of it's the coaching. I think some of it is just the style of play and how the guys like to work. I don't know, but something has to give in Edmonton. There are real serious dangers in the not too distant future. I think it's fair to say that McDavid might get to that point that he does want out. I mean, it's hard to say. Like, you can only take so much losing. You can only take so much of that before you just want to change the scenery and a fresh start and a chance to be competitive year after year after year. Now, I don't think we're anywhere near that yet. No trade request has been made. I don't want to do the wrong impression here, but they definitely need answers in Edmonton, and it doesn't sound like the GM plans to do anything here immediately. I understand the reluctance to throw in a first-round pick or prospects to jeopardize the future for winning now, but you've got two big horses in McDavid and Draisaitl in their prime right now that are going to be frustrated if you don't win. So to me, I think they need to do something, whether it's a combination of coaching change and trades. I wouldn't be worried about the future because the future could look real grim if these guys decide they don't want to stick around. Now, on to the update on Carey Price and the Montreal Canadiens. Now, of course, as I mentioned, the future of Carey Price is very much in doubt and in jeopardy, I think. This is partially my opinion. Part of it is just as well with the recent updates that we had today on the fact that he is going to start rehabbing again, but they made it clear that he is out indefinitely. I think the odds of Carey Price playing this season are pretty slim. I mean, at this point, we're getting into middle January, and he's just getting back to rehabbing his knee. So we know that around the time of the expansion draft, Carey Price made it known he was willing to waive his no-move clause to be exposed because he didn't think any team would touch him because of the injuries he was dealing with. He made it known that he had a hip and a knee issue and that there's a chance that he might miss significant time this year, and it's certainly proven to be true. Of course, we didn't know about the other things he was going to run into and have to enter the personal and have to enter the program for the NHL to deal with the other stuff that he was dealing with as well. When the substance and obviously any kind of mental health issues, all those types of things that you could run into. Like, without even that in mind, like, he still would have been out a significant significant period of time. But he had to wait for his follow-up appointment with the doctor who did the knee surgery, and there were some delays there because of, I believe, a combination of COVID, weather. I don't know exactly what delayed everything, but he finally had his appointment, and rehab is going to restart. But like I said, they've made it clear that it's indefinite, and there is a real good chance he won't play this year. I mean, what would be his incentive to come back? Really, if you think about it, the teams at the bottom of the league, they lost to Arizona today. They're almost, not a shoe-in because there's lots of hockey left, but, the odds of them finishing in the last spot in the NHL at this point appear to be pretty good. Like, why would he want to, rush back for that and risk, injuring anything any further and, damaging the rest of his career? This does not make sense. And there's already been a lot of questions about what will Jeff Gorton and the new GM do in Montreal. Will they go down the route of a rebuild? Could they consider a Carey Price trade? If they did, it's pretty much a guarantee of it happen in the offseason, given how significant that would be when it comes to cap space. And would they consider retaining money for that many years? Like, there's a lot of question marks around his future at this point, given the injuries he's gone through this year, given the personal stuff he's gone through this year, where the team is at. There's no reason for him to come back. They've already lost Shea Weber, who we know likely won't play again. So although talk about Weber and Price maybe being done, it certainly looks to be, obviously now that we can look back on it, it certainly was a lot more accurate than we might have thought at the time. But certainly where Price is at right now, you have to think that if, there's a possibility he could be traded this summer, and this might be it for him in a Habs uniform. Now, lastly, we want to talk about John Klingberg. He was the hot topic on the 32 Thoughts segment on Hockey Night in Canada this weekend. And certainly the Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman are reporting that the Dallas Stars are very much motivated to get a deal done. Things have really intensified around this 29-year-old pending UFA defenseman. Obviously, things have deteriorated, I think, a bit in Dallas with the relationship. His role has been reduced. He's found himself getting third-pair minutes recently. Didn't have some great play recently as well. And really the whole time that he's been under Rick Bowness, I think, is a large part of what's happened. If you follow his trend as a player, the whole time under Bowness as head coach, his performance has not been as good, but he doesn't seem to have the free rein to be more of the offensive elite defenseman than he was in his younger days under different coaching staffs, and that could be a big part of why he is the way he is right now. And obviously some players, like I understand coaches want them to play what they call the right way, be a 200-foot player, all those things. But some guys just don't adapt well to that, and they lose too much of their skill on one side if they have to focus too much on the other. Not that you don't expect them to play defense, but you know what I'm saying? Like some guys, like you have to live with some of the defensive deficiencies when you get that much of an offensive outburst from them, and that's just how some guys are wired, and he seems to be one of those players. Obviously, he's been linked to a variety of teams. We've heard teams like the Bruins, the Blues, both California teams in LA and Anaheim. The Islanders apparently in the mix too. The asking price is really not quite clear as of yet. You have to think there's probably going to be a couple of pieces in there, and a lot of it's going to have to do too if he signs an extension with his new club. I mean, it was reported that he was looking for a 7 or 8 year deal from Dallas in the $8 million or so a year per range, so around $60 million or so dollars. That's a lot of money for a lot of these teams to eat up on a 29-year-old defenseman who's been on the decline. Even though you might be able to explain why he's been on the decline, it doesn't change the fact that it's not helping his case money-wise. I think, according to some of the sites that predict contracts, like Evolving Hockey and a few others, I think it's more likely they feel that he's going to get like a 5-year deal, maybe in like the $6 to $6.5 million range, and that would be, I think, more doable for a lot of these teams that we're talking about. But a team like Carolina, for example, might be in it as a rental. A lot of the other teams that we've talked about here, maybe St. Louis. Otherwise, like the Islanders, the Kings, the Ducks, it doesn't make sense for them to make an acquisition as a rental, in my opinion, where they're not even guaranteed to be playoff teams. If they are, they're not the teams that you would expect to be buying, trying to really push themselves forward. So to me, they would make more sense to talk to him as an unrestricted free agent if he makes it there. So we'll see where this goes, but certainly the Stars appear to be like they really want to get this deal done. They're motivated to trade him, and it's just a matter of getting the right deal and finding out where he's going. It's not a matter now of if he's going to be traded. It's when and it's where he goes. So we'll see what kind of deal Jim Nill can pull off for this player. But as I said back in the summer, when they signed Ryan Suter and they signed Hakanpää and they already got the big Heiskanen contract under a contract, and then of course they had Lindell, I was like, to me, this all seems like it's the end of Klingberg. When they brought in Suter and Hakanpää, it's exactly what it was. It was Klingberg insurance in case they leave or couldn't come to terms. And really, they were never prepared to go anywhere near the contract that he wanted. I mean, they were willing to sign him, sure. They had negotiations. It didn't go well. But if you look at the other deals they have on the books, I don't think there was ever really all that close at all, which explains why he decided that request the permission to talk to other teams and look for a trade, because the writing was on the wall that he wasn't going to get paid anywhere near what he thought he was worth in Dallas. So let me know your thoughts on everything discussed here today down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.